Racist security guard blocks black man, then learns he owns the building. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when Marcus Johnson walked up the steps of the gleaming office tower downtown. His suit was crisp, his tie perfectly knotted, and his shoes polished so well they caught the faint glow of the gray skies above. He carried nothing but a slim leather briefcase, and his expression was calm, steady, confident. But the moment he reached the glass doors, he was met by resistance. A hand, thick, pale, and calloused, slammed against the glass, stopping him cold. It was the building's head of security, Officer Daniels. A tall man with a buzz cut, arms folded across his chest, wearing a sneer that had become his trademark. He squinted at Marcus the way one might squint at a stray dog that had wandered in from the street. "Can I help you?" Daniels asked, though his tone suggested the exact opposite. "Yes," Marcus replied politely. "I have business in the building." Daniels chuckled. "Business? In this building? Don't waste my time. Tenants only. No loitering. Move along." Marcus blinked, unfazed. "I'm telling you, I belong here. I have an appointment." But Daniels wasn't listening. He took a step forward, puffing out his chest, voice dripping with disdain. "Listen, buddy. I've worked this door for 15 years. I know who belongs and who doesn't. And you? Dressed up like you're headed to some church picnic? You don't belong here." Pedestrians passed by, glancing nervously at the unfolding scene. A few slowed down, recognizing what was happening, but none stopped. Marcus kept his composure, but his jaw tightened. "I'm not here to argue," Marcus said evenly. "Step aside." But Daniels planted himself like a wall. "Or what? You gonna call the cops on me? Go ahead. They'll back me up. Now get out before I have you arrested for trespassing." Marcus took a deep breath. Every part of him wanted to snap back, to unleash the frustration boiling inside. But he didn't. He simply looked Daniels dead in the eye and said 6 words that would change everything. "I own this building, Daniels." For a moment, silence. The rain drummed against the glass. Daniels stared, then burst out laughing so loud that people across the street turned their heads. "You? Own this place? That's rich. Tell me another joke, preacher man." But Marcus didn't flinch. He calmly reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were the official papers, contracts, and deeds. He held them up just enough for Daniels to see the embossed seals and the unmistakable signature. Daniels' laughter faltered. His smirk collapsed into confusion. You can't be serious." "I told you," Marcus said, his voice now steel. "I have business here. This is my building. And you just tried to throw me out of it." The tension snapped like a thunderclap. A small crowd had gathered, watching from outside, whispers spreading like wildfire. Phones were out, cameras recording every second. Daniel stumbled backward, his face flushing red. "Wait, I didn't know, I thought." Marcus cut him off. "You thought what? That a black man in a suit couldn't possibly own something this big? That the only way I belong here is through a service entrance? You didn't ask for ID, didn't check a list, you judged me before I said a word." Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. His authority, his smug certainty, was gone. And now the power had shifted. The underdog he thought he could humiliate had just revealed himself as the master of the very ground he stood on. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Daniels could hear. "Let me make this clear. From today forward, your paycheck has my name on it. Every order you take, every hour you work, you answer to me. And after what you pulled today," Marcus paused, letting the weight of it sink in. "We'll see if you even keep this job, Daniel's eyes widened in panic. He had gone from gatekeeper to beggar in an instant. The crowd outside erupted in murmurs, their phones capturing every second of poetic justice. For once, the scales had tipped. Marcus straightened his tie, gave one final look of quiet authority, and walked past the trembling guard. The doors opened smoothly for him, as if recognizing their true owner. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Inside, the marble lobby glistened, and employees turned their heads in stunned silence as Marcus walked by. The whispers followed him, and the cameras kept rolling. By the time he reached the elevators, Daniels was gone from the doorway, slipped away, humiliated, desperate to escape the shame. But Marcus knew this wasn't over. Men like Daniels never learned in one lesson. They always came back, clinging to their pride, fueled by resentment. And Marcus could feel it in his bones. Something darker was brewing behind Daniel's eyes when he realized his world had been flipped upside down. Hours later, as Marcus left the building, a black SUV was parked across the street. Daniels sat in the passenger seat, his jaw tight, his hands fidgeting. Inside the vehicle, a man in a sharp gray suit whispered something to him. A man Marcus didn't recognize. A man whose presence felt dangerous. Marcus locked eyes with Daniels through the rain-speckled window. For a brief moment, he saw it. Hatred. Desperation. And something else, revenge. The SUV pulled away slowly, vanishing into traffic. Marcus exhaled, his instincts on high alert. He had won the first battle. But the war? The war was only just beginning. Because in a city where money and power ruled, Marcus owning the building didn't just make him a landlord. It made him a target. And Daniels wasn't finished with him. Not yet. The rain had cleared by the next morning, but the storm that brewed in Marcus Johnson's life was only just beginning. News of the security guard incident had spread like wildfire. Overnight, the footage of Daniels blocking Marcus went viral. Millions had seen the moment Marcus revealed he owned the building, millions had cheered when the smug guard's arrogance collapsed. Headlines praised him as the silent boss who shut down racism with receipts. But while the world applauded, Marcus knew better. For every cheer, there was a jeer. For every admirer, there was a hater. And hate had a way of festering in the dark until it struck like a snake. Across town, in a dingy diner, Daniels sat hunched in a booth. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. The smell of stale coffee clung to him as he replayed the video on his cracked phone screen again and again. The laughter, the humiliation, it burned. Every replay cut deeper. His friends had stopped calling. His coworkers had turned cold. Even his own family had looked at him differently, ashamed. And seated across from him was the man in the gray suit. Smooth, calm, with a smile that never reached his eyes. "You embarrassed yourself," the man said casually, stirring his coffee. "But more importantly, you embarrassed the kind of people who like their guards to keep things quiet." Daniels glared. "I was doing my job." "No," the man replied. "You were doing your instincts. And those instincts are useful to men like me. But they need to be sharpened." Daniels frowned. "What do you want from me?" The man leaned in. "Not from you. From him. Marcus Johnson. Men like that, successful, polished, unbothered, they're dangerous. They make people believe the system can be fair. And people like me? We can't let that illusion live too long." Daniels shifted uneasily. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," the man whispered, his voice ice cold, "that Marcus Johnson may own that building, but he won't keep it for long. And you're going to help us make sure of that." Back at the building, Marcus tried to focus on work. He met with tenants, finalized contracts, and addressed maintenance concerns. But the whispers followed him everywhere. He could see it in people's eyes, the mixture of respect and doubt. Some applauded him for standing tall. Others muttered that he was lucky or playing a role he didn't deserve. And then, the sabotage began. It started small. A broken lock on his office door. Files missing from his desk. Elevators mysteriously stuck between floors whenever Marcus used them. Each incident could have been chalked up to chance, but Marcus had lived long enough to recognize patterns. One night, long after his staff had left, Marcus stayed late to review financial records. That's when he noticed it, numbers that didn't add up. Money funneled out of the building's accounts, leases signed under shell companies, shady dealings buried in paperwork. This wasn't new. It had been happening before he bought the building. But now, he was the one left holding the bag. And whoever was behind it wasn't just sloppy, they were deliberate. They wanted Marcus to take the fall. 2 days later, Marcus confronted Daniels in the lobby. "I know you've been involved," Marcus said firmly. "You're not just some guard with a bad attitude. You've been helping someone pull strings." Daniels stiffened, trying to mask his nerves. "You think you know everything, huh? You think owning this place makes you untouchable?" Marcus leaned in. "It makes me responsible. And I won't let you, or whoever's behind you, destroy what I've built." Daniels smirked, but his eyes betrayed fear. "Careful, boss man. Some fights you can't win. Some people are bigger than buildings." Marcus didn't blink. "And some men are smaller than their hate." That night, Marcus received another package at his home. No return address. Inside was a single black envelope. He opened it slowly, his heart pounding. Inside was a photograph. It was his wife, Camille, leaving their daughter's school. The picture was taken from across the street, zoomed in, grainy but clear enough. On the back, scrawled in sharp black ink, were 3 words. "Walk away now." Marcus' breath caught in his throat. His mind raced. They weren't just after the building anymore. They were after his family. The next morning, Marcus walked into the building's boardroom, where the tenant committee was gathered. Dozens of eyes turned to him, business owners, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, all of them depending on the stability of this place. He cleared his throat, setting the black envelope on the table. "They want me gone," Marcus said, his voice steady but heavy. "Not just from this building, but from everything I've worked for. They think fear will make me fold. But what they don't know." He paused, scanning the room, meeting each gaze. "Is that fear doesn't break us. It builds us. And I'm not going anywhere." The room erupted in applause. Yet even as he stood tall, Marcus knew, the storm was only getting worse. That night, as he left the building, Marcus noticed the black SUV parked down the block. The same one from before. Its headlights flickered once, like a signal. And then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It read, "We warned you. Check your office." Marcus spun on his heel and sprinted back inside, his heart pounding like a war drum. Up the stairs, down the hall, he shoved open his office door. And froze. The room was trashed. Papers shredded. Computers smashed. And scrawled across the wall in red spray paint were 2 chilling words. "You're next." Marcus stood in the wreckage, his fists clenched, his breath ragged. The message was clear. This was no longer about humiliation. No longer about money. This was war. And as the sound of footsteps echoed faintly down the hallway, growing closer, Marcus realized. He wasn't alone. Marcus froze in the doorway of his office, his eyes scanning the wreckage. Shredded papers littered the floor, the computers were nothing but twisted plastic and sparking wires, and across the wall, the blood-red spray paint screamed back at him. "You're next." The footsteps in the hall grew louder. Slow. Deliberate. A predator's stride. Marcus clenched his fists, steadying his breath. Whoever had come wasn't here by accident. This was meant to be face to face. And then, from the shadows, Daniels appeared. His uniform was disheveled, his jaw tense, his eyes bloodshot like a man at war with himself. In his hand, he clutched a folder. Not a weapon, but something heavier, evidence. "You should have walked away, Johnson," Daniels muttered. "You should have listened." Marcus' eyes narrowed. "You did this? You trashed my office?" Daniels shook his head, almost regretful. "Not me. Them. I told you, some fights are bigger than you. Bigger than me. And now it's too late." He tossed the folder onto the ruined desk. Papers spilled out, documents, bank transfers, confidential memos, all signed by one name. Marcus picked up a page, his blood running cold. The name at the bottom wasn't Daniels. It wasn't Holbrook or some faceless businessman. It was Judge Wallace, the most powerful property court judge in the state. The same man Marcus had once stood before when he fought to buy this very building. Marcus' voice trembled, but not with fear, with rage. "So that's it. Wallace has been pulling the strings all along." Daniels swallowed hard. "Wallace runs everything. The permits. The courts. The banks. You think you bought this building clean, but he let you have it, because he knew he could take it back whenever he wanted. And now that you embarrassed me, embarrassed all of them, he's done playing." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes locked on Daniels. "And you? You're just his errand boy? You let him use you to do his dirty work?" Daniels' face twisted. Shame flickered behind his anger. "You don't understand. Men like him, they own this city. I thought if I did what he wanted, I'd finally matter. I'd finally be somebody." Marcus' voice cut sharp as steel. "You were already somebody. But you sold your soul to be his shadow." The tension hung heavy. And then, another voice joined the room. Slow, smooth, dripping with arrogance. "Well said, Mr. Johnson. But this is where your sermon ends." Judge Wallace stepped into the doorway, flanked by two men in gray suits. His presence filled the room like smoke, thick, suffocating, impossible to escape. He smiled coldly at Marcus, then turned to Daniels. "Good boy," Wallace said. "You delivered him right where I wanted." Marcus' heart sank. Daniels' betrayal was complete. Daniels looked away, unable to meet Marcus' eyes. Wallace strode forward, surveying the trashed office with disdain. "You've caused quite the mess, Mr. Johnson. Stirring up the press, embarrassing my people, making tenants believe they can own a piece of the pie without bowing to the table that serves it. Admirable, yes. But dangerous." Marcus stood tall, unflinching. "Dangerous to you, you mean? Because I refuse to play by your rules." Wallace chuckled. "My dear boy, there are no rules. There's only power. And in this city, I am power." He snapped his fingers. The men in gray stepped forward, blocking the exit. "You can give up the building willingly," Wallace said, his voice dropping low. "Or you can lose everything, your reputation, your family, your freedom. I'll bury you so deep in lawsuits you'll beg for the life you had before." Marcus' pulse thundered, but his voice came calm. "You've already made one mistake, Wallace." Wallace raised a brow. "And what mistake is that?" Marcus took a step closer, his eyes burning. "You underestimated me. Just like Daniels did. Just like they all did. But I didn't build this on luck. I built it on truth. And no amount of lies or power will erase that." Wallace's smile faded. For the first time, a flicker of unease crossed his face. Because what he didn't know, what Marcus had been preparing ever since the SUV first appeared, was that the FBI had been listening. Hidden in Marcus' briefcase was a live recorder. Every word Wallace had just spoken, every threat, every admission, it was captured. But before Marcus could reveal it, Wallace nodded to his men. "Enough of this. Take him." The two gray-suited men lunged forward, grabbing Marcus by the arms. Papers scattered, the recorder slid across the floor, and Wallace's smirk returned. "Goodbye, Mr. Johnson," Wallace sneered. But then, an unexpected crack split the air. Daniel's voice. "Let him go." Everyone froze. Daniel stood rigid, his hand trembling as it hovered over his holstered sidearm. His voice wavered, but his eyes were locked on Wallace. "I said, let him go." Wallace laughed. "You pathetic fool. You think you can save him? After everything you've done?" Daniel swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Maybe I can't save him. But I can stop you from destroying him." For the first time, Daniels turned to Marcus. His face was twisted with guilt. "I made a choice. The wrong one. But I'm done being your pawn, Wallace. It ends tonight." The room erupted. Wallace barked an order, his men lunged, and chaos filled the office. Marcus broke free, grappling with one of the gray-suited guards, slamming him into the shattered desk. Daniels drew his weapon, firing a warning shot into the ceiling, sending sparks raining down. Wallace scrambled for the recorder, his face twisted with fury. "Stop him!" Wallace roared. "Get the evidence!" But Marcus was faster. He dove for the recorder, snatching it from the floor just as Wallace's men closed in. In that instant, Daniels shoved Marcus toward the door. "Go! Take it! End this!" Marcus stumbled into the hall, clutching the recorder, his chest heaving. Behind him, the sound of struggle, shouts, gunfire, the crash of breaking glass. And then, silence. Marcus turned back, but the hallway was empty. The office door slammed shut. And from inside, Wallace's voice echoed, furious and cold. "You think this is over, Johnson? This city belongs to me. And by tomorrow, you'll be nothing but dust." Marcus staggered down the stairwell, clutching the recorder like a lifeline. He had the evidence. He had the truth. But Daniels, his fate was unknown. And as Marcus burst into the night air, the black SUV screeched to a stop in front of the building. Doors swung open. Men stepped out. Not Wallace's men. Not Daniels. Federal agents. Guns raised. Lights flashing. And their leader shouted the words that made Marcus' blood run cold. "Attorney Johnson, you're under arrest." The cold steel cuffs dug into Marcus' wrists as the agents shoved him into the back of the van. Flashing lights painted the night sky, and neighbors peered from their windows, whispering in shock. To them, it looked like justice was being served. But Marcus knew the truth, he wasn't the criminal here. Inside the van, the air was heavy with tension. The lead agent, a stone-faced woman with eyes like glass, leaned forward. "You've been accused of fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. Anything you say can and will be used against you." Marcus met her gaze, steady and unbroken. "Then I hope you're recording this, because the only fraud here is Judge Wallace." The agent didn't flinch. But the corner of her mouth twitched, almost like she was hiding something. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed with energy. Reporters packed the benches, cameras flashed, and the public leaned in for the spectacle. On one side, Judge Wallace presided with his usual smugness, flanked by expensive lawyers. On the other, Marcus sat in chains, his suit rumpled but his spirit unbroken. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same judge who had signed away his future now sat in judgment over him. The fox guarding the henhouse. Wallace's voice boomed across the room. "Marcus Johnson, you stand accused of multiple federal crimes. Do you have anything to say before we begin proceedings?" Marcus rose slowly, the chains clinking. He glanced at the jury, at the reporters, at the sea of faces waiting to see him fall. Then he locked eyes with Wallace. "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus said, his voice calm but razor-sharp. "I have something to say. I have the truth." Gasps rippled through the room. Wallace leaned back, smirking. "The truth? Then by all means, enlighten us." Marcus reached into his pocket. The agents who arrested him had returned his belongings earlier, minus the recorder. Wallace's men must have seized it. But Marcus wasn't empty-handed. He tapped the table. From the back of the courtroom, a tall woman in a gray blazer stepped forward. She carried a laptop and a sealed evidence bag. "Objection!" Wallace's lawyer barked. "Who is this?" Marcus smiled. "This is Special Agent Ramirez, FBI. And she has something you've been trying to bury." The courtroom erupted. Wallace's smirk faltered. Agent Ramirez placed the recorder on the evidence table. This device contains a live recording of Judge Wallace threatening Mr. Johnson and admitting to orchestrating fraudulent property schemes. Wallace shot to his feet, his face red. "Lies. That's inadmissible. It was obtained illegally." But Ramirez cut him off. "Actually, it was obtained legally, under federal surveillance protocols. We've been investigating Judge Wallace for years. Mr. Johnson was our unwitting key witness." The room went silent. Marcus turned to Wallace, his voice steady. "You thought you had me cornered. You thought you owned me. But every threat you made, every word you spoke, you exposed yourself. You underestimated me because of the color of my skin, because I refused to bow down. And now, the whole world sees who you really are." The jury stared wide-eyed. Reporters scribbled furiously. Even Wallace's own lawyers looked shaken. For the first time, Judge Wallace's mask cracked. His lips trembled, his fists clenched, and sweat beaded at his brow. This is a setup," Wallace stammered. "A conspiracy." But Marcus stepped closer, chains clinking like battle drums. "No, Wallace. This is justice." The judge overseeing the trial, brought in after Wallace's conflict of interest was exposed, slammed his gavel. "Order. Effective immediately, Judge Wallace is stripped of his duties pending criminal investigation. Mr. Johnson, the charges against you are dismissed with prejudice." The courtroom exploded. Reporters rushed toward Marcus, shouting questions. Some people clapped. Others cried. Marcus stood tall, tears threatening to spill but pride holding them back. After all the humiliation, the threats, the attempts to strip him of his dignity, he had won. Or so he thought. As the gavel fell one last time, agents moved in, not for Marcus, but for Wallace. The disgraced judge thrashed, shouting curses, his voice cracking with desperation. "You'll regret this, Johnson. You'll regret the day you crossed me." Marcus turned to him, his voice low but resolute. "No. The only thing I regret is that it took this long for you to face the truth." The agents dragged Wallace out, his shouts fading into silence. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt the weight lift from his chest. Justice had been served. The tables had turned. But just as he prepared to leave the courtroom, Agent Ramirez leaned close, her expression grim. "Marcus," she whispered, "you need to know something." Wallace wasn't working alone. Marcus froze. "What do you mean?" Ramirez's eyes flickered toward the gallery, where a man in a black suit sat silently, watching. His face was calm, his posture relaxed, but his eyes burned with quiet menace. "That's Robert Kane," Ramirez said. "Wallace's partner. The real mastermind behind the scheme. And unlike Wallace, Kane has deeper pockets, dirtier connections, and no conscience." As Marcus turned, Cain smiled faintly, then raised his hand in a mock salute before slipping out the courtroom doors. Ramirez's words chilled him to the bone. Wallace was just the beginning. The real battle is only about to start. Marcus stood there, the cheers of the crowd echoing around him, the smell of victory fresh in the air, but his heart heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. Justice was served today. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, a darker war awaited. And this time, the enemy was bigger than anything he had ever faced.